everyone. This is Jennifer Tarle with Tarle Speech. And for your lunchtime lesson today, I have something very exciting. We are going to be talking to Abdul Pridgen, and he is the chief of the San Leandro Police Department. He was appointed in 2021 to serve alongside a dedicated group of community guardians in one of the most diverse cities in the country. He is proud to have been born and raised in the Bronx, New York. The rich cultural diversity and abundant opportunities he experienced have greatly influenced the person he has become. Chief Pridgen is an open, honest, authentic, and approachable leader who understands citizens' vital role in co-producing community safety. Throughout his career, he has put systems in place to increase the public's confidence in the police, reduce crime, and assure that policing for safety, not incarceration, is each officer's focus. Chief Pridgen recognizes every employee's value to the agency and heavily invests in their training, resources, and professional development. Interestingly, he is also a U.S. Navy veteran, and San Leandro, California is excited to have him as their police chief. Please help me welcoming Police Chief Abdul Pridgen. Hi, Chief Pridgen. How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you? I just
I
appreciate the opportunity to visit.
I am doing very well. So thank you again for being here. So just tell us, to get started, a little bit about your childhood. It must have been interesting growing up in the Bronx.
Yes, it was very interesting growing up in the Bronx, New York. As many know, that's one of the 5 boroughs in the Bronx. And so I was the youngest of 3 boys. My mom was a single parent. She worked 2 jobs, went to school at night, and put us actually in Catholic school because she knew that that would provide us a better education and potentially platform to be successful in life. And so it was interesting that my brothers took a different route in their lives than I did. You know, I sort of managed to fall into law enforcement, and they managed to fall into other lines of work that causes them to interact with the police. So,
Oh, okay.
but it was a loving home, and just enjoyed the rich culture and divergent experiences and ethnicities that existed in New York.
Awesome. Okay. So how did you get into being a police officer and into policing? Is this something you've always wanted to do?
So very interesting in that my mother and father divorced when I was 7, and my father was actually a New York City police officer
Oh,
and
interesting.
retired after 20 years, but it never, ever crossed my mind to be a police officer. I wound up enlisting in the Navy when I was 17.
Mhm.
My mother had to sign a waiver in order for me to join, and I actually repaired computers with a top secret clearance. And so I thought I would be making a ton of money working for Hewlett Packard, IBM. I don't even know if those companies exist anymore.
I don't know
But
either.
when yeah. But then when I got out, my money wasn't going as far as I thought it would because I actually had bills, things that I didn't have when I was in the Navy, and an acquaintance, not even someone I was really closely aligned with, just an acquaintance mentioned that the police department in Fort Worth was hiring. And my immediate question was, how much are they paying? And it was significantly more than I was making. And I thought to myself, I'm really easygoing. I'm not easy to anger. I think I could be a police officer. That's literally how it happened.
Okay, so you were in New York and then you were in the Navy. Where were you living when you were in the Navy?
So when I was in the Navy, I originally was stationed in San Diego, California.
Okay.
Then I went to school in Pensacola, Florida for about 2.5 years to learn how to repair all these high-tech computers. And then
Okay.
I was stationed in Japan for 3.5 years.
Oh,
And then
awesome.
when I got discharged from the Navy, I happened to be in Grand Prairie, Texas, which is 2 cities over from Fort Worth, Texas. And that's where this conversation came up about the police department was hiring. And then here I am, some
Okay.
30 plus years later.
Okay, so you were in Fort Worth, and then how did you get to San Leandro?
Another interesting story. I might write a book, maybe a couple.
You need to. Okay.
So from Texas, I was there again for 25.5 years. And I traveled a lot just in my spare time because, again, I was in the Navy. that sort of inspired me to learn about different cultures and ethnicities in different countries. And so I traveled a lot. And so in 2015, I traveled to Istanbul, Turkey on vacation.
Hmm.
And that's where I met my wife. We were both staying at the same hotel, met over breakfast. And after a week, I said, I'm marrying this woman. And she lived in California. And from that point, I started putting in applications to be a chief in California and wound up being appointed the chief of Seaside, California in 2018.
Hmm.
And then a few years later, we had our first child, and my wife wanted to get closer to Sacramento, where her family is. And then the opportunity in San Leandro presented itself. It's
Hmm.
only an hour and a half drive from San Leandro to Sacramento. And here I am.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I love a good like romantic comedy, romantic movie. Like that is a movie right there. I mean, you can write a whole book about how you met your wife at a hotel on vacation. Like I
It's
don't think I've
crazy.
ever talked to anyone who's met their spouse that way. That's amazing. Okay. Um so here you are now in San Leandro. You're a police chief. I'm going to be honest. I don't 100% know, what does a police chief do? Like, what are your job duties? What does a day to day look like?
So very interesting. So as a police chief, you're responsible essentially for crime. Of course, police aren't solely responsible, but police are largely responsible for keeping the community safe, preventing crimes from occurring, providing people with tips on how to avoid being victims of crime,
Hmm.
and then strategically moving the department forward on how we increase our relationship with the community.
Hmm.
Because, as some of your listeners might be aware, the greater your relationship with the community, the more trust you build,
Hmm.
the greater your legitimacy, meaning that people actually want to work with you. They're willing to tell you when crimes are being committed. Because, we all watch these detective shows on television where they do some incredible work and they solve crimes quickly. But the truth is, it typically happens because people in the community know about the people who might be responsible and share that information with you. And then you put the pieces together to make the arrest. But it's everything that happens in the police department. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Is it consistent with our values, our principles? Are we being respectful and procedurally just when we do it? So a typical day is some meetings. I've got to meet with people both in the community and in the department. Lots of emails. I've got to read what happened the night before, anything of interest, anything that I might glean. Hey, could we have handled this a little bit differently? Then it's okay, what are we doing with respect to what our shared values are and how are we aligning ourselves with what our ultimate mission is? And every day I'm looking, okay, where are we? Are we moving where we need to go? Okay, are any course corrections necessary? And then reaching out to stakeholders, whether it be city council members, people within the police department, people in the community, and then getting feedback and making those corrections with everyone's voice and input to make sure that we're keeping our community safe and at the same time we're respectful and procedurally just and constitutional in the way we serve our community. And it's about making people feel safe, but also them being safe.
Okay, I love that. And then what about so I do think it's interesting that a big part of your job is just checking emails. Like I just personally I never thought that would be something that the chief of police is doing every day. Such a like a clerical task that I think we all do. I guess that's just a part of everyone's jobs these days.
It is.
What about a regular police officer? What do they do on a daily basis?
So great question. So police officers typically work shift work and they're assigned a particular schedule. And right now in our department, we have several schedules that officers are assigned. The day shift, they typically get to work at about 5:40 in the morning, and they meet with their sergeant, what they call a briefing or roll call.
Mhm.
And what happens there is the sergeant shares important information about crime, about things that are going on in the police department, about things that are happening in the city. And then they might actually debrief and discuss something that happened the day before about a particular incident, maybe an arrest, how it could have been done differently. And then they're all released to go in their marked patrol cars and drive through the city and typically answer calls for service. You have people in the community that might be an issue, it might be a crime, or it might just be a concern. they'll call our dispatchers or our call takers who take the phone call. This is Jane Doe. I live in San Leandro, and here's my issue. And if it rises to the level that it can't be handled over the phone and requires a police presence, the call taker then dispatches a police officer to that location, and they'll send them information over a computer. It'll show up on their screen, and they'll also call them on the radio and say, Officer so-and-so, but they have call signs, but we'll just say, Officer so-and-so, I've got a call at a disturbance at this location. And the officer will say, I hear you, and I'm headed there. And so the entire day is them fielding calls for service, because we get tens of thousands a year. I think last year we might have gotten 100,000. For a city our size, that's a lot. And when they're not answering calls for service, they're driving around the neighborhood, getting to know people, preventing crime, and then every now and then they'll have time to eat or use the restroom. But that is a typical day, and we have officers do that 24/7. So that's the day shift. Then you have other people that come to work at 5:40 in the evening and work till 6 o'clock in the morning. And then we have officers that come in on the weekend that work the same day shift and evening shift on the weekend. So a typical day is them going from call to call, trying to resolve problems in the community. And best case scenario, they make a long-term solution to what might have been a long-term problem, as opposed to having to continue to go to that same location over and over again.
I love that. I used to work in public schools, and there were so many kids that I would say they would just make a bad choice. They weren't bad kids. And
Right.
I had nothing but great interactions with all of the officers who would come and oftentimes be sort of a coach, I would say, to the kids and really just sort of help them along. So I just wanted to kind of add that in because I've had nothing but incredible experiences. Now, I will say, even with all my incredible experiences, and I'm a very safe driver, I don't know if your police officers do this. I did get a speeding ticket once. What should we do as a citizen? Or if someone's here visiting the country, what do we do when the lights go on and we're on the road and someone pulls us over? Like, what should we do? How can we be a good, how can we cooperate with you?
That's a great question. So if you happen to see an officer behind you and they turn on their lights and sirens, typically it's just the lights, unless they're trying to get your attention, then they'll turn on the siren. You pull over to the right side of the road as quickly and as safely as you can. So you don't want to do it in the middle of the lane of traffic, because that's dangerous for you and for the officer. So you look for maybe a gas station or a parking lot or a side of the road where there aren't other cars. And pull over and just put your hands on the steering wheel, wait for the officer to come up. They'll typically come up and say, my name is Officer Pridgen. The reason I stopped you is because I noticed that you were traveling at such and such speed, and the speed limit is this. Then they'll typically ask for your driver's license or insurance. And what you can expect and should expect is that the officer is going to be patient and explain to you why they stopped you, and then allow you to get your information and still maybe engage you in conversation. But ultimately, what they're trying to do is prevent that behavior. So sometimes it might result in just a warning, and sometimes it might result in a citation. But what you want to do is just be respectful, as they should be to you. Listen to the instructions, follow them. And if you have any questions, ask.
Okay, great. I also just want to mention for all of my listeners who aren't from the US, one of the other things that police officers often do is I drop my daughter off at school sometimes, and there's just a police officer sitting in his car, just making sure everyone's getting in and out of the building, making sure no one's going too fast in the school zone, because you have to slow down at the school zone. So I love that. And then I have a really big question for my daughter. Do you have police dogs?
Yes. So our police department used to have canines, which are dogs that are partnered with an officer, and they typically work late night hours and help search for people or locate people who might be trying to flee the police. We don't have them now.
Okay.
Maybe sometime in the future they will come back. But the other thing that we're considering is a therapy dog. So research has supported that dogs in the workplace are really good for people's wellness and disposition, and especially those who are coming in as victims. And it just helps settle them and calm them. and it's added benefit to the staff we have. So that's something that we're exploring. And who doesn't like a dog? I mean, maybe there are some people out there, probably 2% of the
Yeah.
population. I don't know. But it definitely lifts the spirits of your employees and helps those victims who are suffering trauma sort of settle them and help them through the process.
Okay. I love that. I didn't even know that was a thing. Recently in my community, our police dog retired with his police officer. I didn't know that was a thing. They retired
Yes.
together and we miss him. He was the best. We still we don't have another police dog yet, but that was a big draw when we would go to community events. We got to see the
Absolutely.
police dog. So that was always exciting. Okay. Well, it sounds like you just have an amazing city, an amazing group. You just seem like an amazing and caring leader. I hear you have some job openings, perhaps. Is this true?
Yes, we absolutely.
Okay. So, how can people find you? How can people apply? How can we help you?
So the easiest way to find our department and learn more about our department is if your listeners go to whereourblue.org, and I'll spell it. That's WeArOurblue.org. And we've got openings for police officer and also for public safety dispatcher. And I'll just say, we really are a department that's close knit, sort of like a family. So if people are interested in working in a place that they really treat you as family and value who you are as an individual and as a person and what you can bring to the organization, this is the place. And we put family above all else. So, for example, we're short staffed, but if someone needs to be there for their family, whether it be a graduation, a soccer match, or whatever it is, we say, go spend time with your family and we'll figure out how we need to fill the gap. But your family is more important than a 10-hour shift or a 12-hour shift. So we really care about our employees and want to make sure that we maximize their opportunity to spend time with their families, to share in those memories that you'll never get a chance to get back.
I love that. That warms my heart. So there is the whereourblue.org. That is where you can go to apply. Okay. This has been so great. We might have to have you back on again. I find this so
I'd love
interesting,
to.
and my listeners might have some questions. I'm going to put the website in the link on YouTube, and if you're listening to this as a podcast, it will also be linked in the podcast. I always end my lessons with give it a try. People are going to notice the difference. So, what can people give a try so that other people will notice the difference today? Like, what's your word of wisdom before we end?
Great question. So I think, especially now, and especially in America, people are quick to judge and make presumptions about other people
Mhm.
because of what they look like, what they wear, or who they might be around. I would ask your listeners to go up to someone that you ordinarily would never enter into a conversation with and just try to get to know them as a human being and as a person. And you will find that we have more alike than we have differences. And everyone is really trying to do their best in their mind to make a difference. And if you just learn a little bit more about that person, it may give you some insight into why they have the perspective that they have. And the analogy is like in policing. I know sometimes people view police a certain way, but when you get to know us, we're no different than you or anyone else that you might know. We just have a different responsibility, a much more important, or should I say, a much more accountable responsibility in society. But we're family, friends, children, the things that you like and hold dear are the same things that we like and hold dear. And I think through that, we can start building stronger, more resilient, and more successful communities.
That was beautiful. Chief Pridgen, this was amazing. I can't thank you enough. And again, everyone, if you were interested in maybe working with Chief Pridgen in San Leandro, California, go to whereourblue.org. So again, thank you so much. All the best to you and be safe and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.